Hey, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I'm gonna give everybody a couple minutes just to jump on and get comfortable. Appreciate you all taking the time to meet with us this morning. Let's see. Dan and I are both coming in or tuning in from Nashville, Tennessee. If anybody knows what just happened in Nashville, we just got annihilated by a ice storm. So both Dan and I are excited to have power. And Jorge, you look like you
A
look
ghost.
yeah, the ghost. I'm gonna save you for later, bud,
Okay.
and turn off your
All right.
video there for now.
Okay.
Um, but did anybody else, just in the chat, anybody else live through the obviously not just the Nashville, but there was a big, huge winter storm that kind of went through. I think up in one of our teammates up in Pennsylvania has about 2 feet of snow up there right now. But what's the temperature? What city are you joining in from? Just throw it in the chat. Yep. NYC. NYC, how did you get, Carlos, how many inches did y'all get? Colorado Springs, 12 inches. Okay. Ah, Southern California, 72 degrees. Yeah, RJ, I would pick that any day. Uh Victoria, that's with 55 degrees. That's great. Anyone else lose power? I lost power for 10 days. 3 kids, dog, cat, wife,
I
10
mean, it
days.
was rough.
It was rough. It was a little nutty. Yes, you will get a recording, John. Thanks for asking. I lost it for 7 guys. Good to see you guys. 7.5 hours. Mississippi boy, right? That made it through. That's where you're from, guys, originally, aren't you? Grew up in Minnesota, Phil of freezing. Yep. Man, it is crazy. One, the fact that our infrastructure was not able to get us back on a little bit earlier, but it is just nuts what you take for granted. And these situations certainly teach you. So 40 degrees and it's cold. That's funny, Richard. Yeah, there are that Jorge's right. In our area, there are still people that don't have power, which is crazy. All right, so we're gonna give a couple more minutes and let everybody kind of join. Feel free to grab a cup of coffee, um, get comfortable. Dan and I, we're kind of a talkative and interactive bunch. So we love the chat. We love hearing from you. Obviously, keep it clean, keep it nice. Um, we got a great team behind the scenes that's going to be helping us out. But yeah, so we're about 10:04. Let's go ahead and let's get started. Dan, you good with that? You ready to rock and
Yep,
roll?
let's go.
All right. Well, like I said, welcome everyone. Both Dan and I, we're thrilled that you're here. Today, we're diving into something, a paradox that if you've been in consulting or advising or coaching organizations, you often know this paradox. And so the challenge is you can walk into an organization and within 20 minutes of talking to them, you know what the challenges are before the client does. But what we're finding is knowing just isn't enough in this competitive landscape. So, as well as a difficult economy. So, bringing your client to the same understanding and with trust and confidence of the direction that you're going to take them becomes the challenge. So, today, Dan and I are actually going to show you how to close that gap and turn your instinct into insight and build this unshakable trust from the first meeting, resulting in securing both short and long-term opportunities as well as increasing revenue. So here's a little bit of our roadmap of what we're going to be covering today. We're going to begin with what we call the confidence gap, what it is and why it exists. And then we're going to shift to a strategy that you can use to differentiate in early prospect and client conversations, even before formal diagnostics. So from there, we'll take a deep dive into the Journey platform. We'll walk through a couple real cases to include meeting a current subscriber, a consultant that uses our platform, and a client, an individual that was a part of a team that a different consultant, one of our subscribers, used the platform on. So, um, and that client experienced the power of the platform, and we will and wrap with a practical model that we call no show and move. That you can start using immediately. So, this is, like I said at the beginning, this is going to be an interactive webinar. So, be prepared to participate in some of the polls and the Q&A, and be sure to stay towards the end. We do have a special offer for those of you that stick around. So, quick introduction. My name's Rusty Goodsell. I'm the CEO of New Orchard with 20 years plus in the tech space. Started New Orchard in January of 2020. That's right before the pandemic. And with the intention of cultivating financial, communal, and relational wealth using technology to remove ambiguity. So, a lot of people will ask me, what exactly are you trying to say there? Ambiguity is the killer of execution. And so, if we can surface things, give all of us kind of a common language to be able to work from, we can remove that ambiguity. So I'm also joined today by Dan George, who is our Chief Experience Officer. His experience spans strategy, analytics, cultural transformation, and he was originally a subscriber of Journey and just kept coming with a lot of ideas and questions and thoughts. And so we decided to ask Dan to join us. So, Dan, appreciate you joining us. Anything you want to add about
Yeah.
yourself?
No, happy to be here. Thrilled that we're going to be on this webinar with you all. Happy to answer questions. I've been in consulting for about 20 years, led a bunch of different teams at enterprise sizes, and I'm excited to kind of share how this tool could have helped all of those past projects, and now that we use them on our current project. So fantastic to be here. So just a bit of housekeeping here before we dive in. Quick heads up. We know not everyone can stay the entire time. So if something about today in the presentation sparks your curiosity, whether that's accelerating, kind of the discovery, learning more about how the platform works, there's a link here. Our team behind us is here to kind of provide you with our contacts. So if you'd love to explore more, we'd love to meet with you. So here's the link to meet up with us and get more time later. All right, so let's start with a quick poll. What's your biggest challenge in early stage prospect meetings?
Yeah, this is it gaining trust, standing apart? We've talked about it being a competitive environment. We love your participation in this because this is actually how we build our technology is to kind of serve to these questions. Dan, if you weren't already involved with Journey, how would you have answered this prior?
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to, having that prospect know just everything about your capabilities and your understanding, and then being able to have a methodology and a framework to use to be sure that with any one of these prospect meetings, you're delivering a consistent front that is one of those things that has the client feeling good about what you can do for them and what you can accomplish for them.
That's good. Yeah, I would agree. Let's go ahead. Cedric, can you pull up the results? Let's go ahead and share that.
Here
So
we go.
in the lead, getting decision
Decision
maker
maker buy-in.
buy-in.
Yep.
That
Communicating the value
is,
process. Yeah.
we are going to be talking a lot about that today, but we will cover some of these other areas as well, communicating the value of my process. I think individuals are going to appreciate, kind of taking a look at this. So, Dan?
Yeah. So the confidence gap here. So what do we mean by the confidence gap, right? And why are we focusing on this? Well, first, we're not talking about your confidence being the challenge, but rather your prospects or your client's confidence in you and your firm at the very beginning of any engagement. So here's the root issue, right? Consultants often know the problem early on, right? You're being brought in for something specific. So as you're in there for something specific, you probably already know that problem, but they need to see it and they need to feel it. Your client needs to understand that you understand them. So this disconnect between advisor insight and client belief is kind of what stalls the progress, right? Slows buy-in, undermines even the best strategies.
Yeah, so this is actually what we call the belief paradox. So insight doesn't always equal perception. So we're not battling complexity, we're actually battling belief, which we see getting maker buy-in, being our front runner. So at New Orchard, I think one to set the stage, it's important to know that we actually look at all of our subscribers. So all of our subscribers are typically consultants, advisors, and business coaches of organizations. So we actually look at them as doctors or physicians of businesses. Their goal isn't just to diagnose, it's actually to generate conviction. So your prospect or client is trying to figure out four things. Does this firm or this individual have the talent and the experience that we need? Can we trust them with our vulnerability? Typically, if they're bringing someone from the outside, it means that they're unable to do it themselves. And so it puts them in a vulnerable situation. Third thing is, how long will it take and how much will it cost for them to figure us out? And finally, can they get us out of the pain that we're in and keep us out of that pain? So again, your patient or your prospect is not just looking for you to know what the problem is. They're actually looking to for you to get their trust throughout the process. So when clients actually don't believe what you already know and you try to get them to engage, three things end up happening. First, actions delayed. Second, you're stuck in this repetitive discovery process. And finally, third, the team ends up resisting change. So the cost is not theoretical, it's a measurable and lost time, stalled projects, missed opportunities, and not to mention you actually face reputational risk that is a lot harder to overcome. So ultimately, your firm's profitability and reputation, that's it, what's at risk. So as I mentioned earlier, we're in a market that does not allow for lost time, and progress because frankly, someone else is already knocking at the door. In the U.S. alone, the revenue generated from this market, from advisory services, is somewhere around $407 billion in 2025. And 80% of consulting firms, this is one to pay attention to. 80% of consulting firms worldwide have fewer than 5 employees. So this is actually indicating a large base of boutique and solo consultants. So it's a competitive market, not to mention an unregulated one. So you could actually easily be up against, let's say your prospect has a cousin that just graduated from Harvard and has never set foot in a business, but you're going to be forced to compete with that individual. Not to mention that major firms have been in the process of shedding talent. And one would assume that a good number of those individuals are entering into the market as well. So it's imperative to establish that trust and authority quickly.
So great point on this is your differentiator, right? This is where great advisory firms separate themselves. While others pitch promises, you lead with process and insight. This structured, visual, and repeatable journey that fosters trust and clarity, and all of this before you can even run any of your own methodologies or diagnostics, right? You're going to tell the story that they will see themselves in, that uses self-reported data from your clients, that clearly gets the prospect to the same understanding of diagnosis as you and getting there fast. So there's no delay in them feeling great about how you're going to deliver and accomplish things for them. So as we look at this, we often spend time with people like yourselves that attempt to accomplish this by pitching a new tool, an assessment, a survey. There's tons of other companies that do this out there. You know, at New Orchard, we actually never want any of our prospects or clients to ever know the name Journey or New Orchard. This is something that's behind, that's supporting you, right? So going back to the doctor analogy, when was the last time you chose a doctor based on the brand of X-ray that they were using or the MRI machine? You know, where did they get the lab work completed, right? None of that really matters. Instead, right, instead of naming that tool, this is what it might sound like for your prospect or client. So you're in the meeting, right? And so we're going to make this, this invisible dynamics perspective of your org visible, not with opinions, not with a 12-week discovery marathon, but with a self-reported input that gets translated into simple visual proof of where your client is and some of their processes. So first we surface how your leaders currently view the organization, not the personality. So this is not a personality test, but their perspectives. And we map where decision-making is naturally pulling the company in different directions. Then we show what kind of change your culture can realistically sustain. So what's change supporting, what's neutral or hindering. So we don't prescribe a plan that your team can't actually execute. And finally, we pinpoint where the operation is mature or immature across strategy, implementation, money, and people. So you're not guessing where execution will break down, right? So you're not buying our confidence, you're seeing your own data tell the story. So no, you're not selling an MRI machine. You're showing them the scan as a doctor, and you're providing them with that intelligence. And once they can see it, the path forward stops being a debate and is simply left to the decision to hire you.
Okay, so let's take another minute and take our second poll. Okay, so I see a little bit of chat going on. I love seeing that, kind of debating and talking about what's going on in the market. Think about this. Would a structured visual process help you win more early stage prospect and client meetings? Okay, so what we're not asking is would a new process or something along those lines, but taking your existing process, putting that into a visual representation, and walking them through that, would that serve you well?
Yeah. So often you kind of start with some of these early engagement meetings and there's not much to show from you, or if it is, it's not really tailored toward that specific client. And so being able to have this input from them, the visualizations and a framework for getting into this engagement, it's so helpful with being able to continue on that conversation with how you'll be able to help and show that you can quickly assess some of their issues and challenges.
Yeah. So we are seeing that most people are saying, yeah, it could or it would. So we're in the right place. We're having the
Yep.
right conversation so far. So let's keep going. So let's imagine that you and your firm, and when we say firm, that can be, sorry, I have a motion detector where my lights go off every once in a while, so a little distracting. But when we say firm, that can be an individual, one person engages. So imagine your firm engages New Orchard and the Journey platform. What are the core challenges that it solves? First is insight validation, so that clients trust the data as everything is self-reported. This isn't your thought of where that organization is, it's their data that they answered. So the second is speed to clarity. So you get alignment faster by ushering your prospect towards the understanding that you already might have. And then third is a shared vision. So execution ends up being unified. So let's take a look real quick at deeper at exactly how exactly the platform is accomplishing this for you and your firm. So the data gathering process provides three major areas of value: accelerating the data gathering, mitigating subjectivity, and finally, amplifying you and your team's expertise. You already heard Dan say a lot of our clients, they take pride in the fact that they never have to mention Journey or New Orchard. This is about lifting your expertise up. So there's three data gathering modules. The OII clarifies identity of the organization. The OCC measures their adaptability towards change or change capacity. And the OMI evaluates execution maturity around processes and procedures. So each module is extremely lightweight, it's visual, and immediately actionable. So together, they show clients what they couldn't articulate, and that's the turning point. Once the data is actually gathered, the real magic begins to happen. So there's three components to being able to successfully analyze the data, with you being one of those. And you do not need to be some data analyst to utilize this. We have built this for the most common consultant out there. A consultant's expertise will always be critical because you bring insights that data alone can't capture, such as interpersonal communication and observations, internal politics, and market conditions. Your ability to contextualize data ensures that the recommendations are not only effective, but also aligned with the organization's culture and external realities, leading to more sustainable outcomes. So combining your insights along with what we call our strategy builder allows you to prioritize actions that will have the most impact on that organization's specific goals. So you'll be able to analyze factors like profitability, speed, and risk to guide decisions. So, you're utilizing data science to lay out the next best behavioral changes that are going to be effective for that organization. And then finally, you enter in what we call Scout AI. Once you enter Scout into the equation, Scout is essentially your New Orchard AI business analyst assistant that integrates. So you now have a data analyst on your team. Scout has the ability to integrate, interpret, and analyze data from all three reports, as well as various other data inputs. And we're actually going to hear about that from one of our participants later. Together, this human plus platform approach allows firms of any size to deliver the kind of data-backed insight, precision, and professionalism once reserved typically for the largest consultancies, but a fraction of the time and cost. So it actually levels the playing field, letting you act with clarity, confidence, and speed that today's business environment is demanding. Now, this is an important part. So, firms, individuals that typically incorporate this into their process on the front end of the engagement. So you're baselining, you're automatically entering your client into a journey of continuous improvement. So, as the advisor, you're actually setting yourself up to quickly get that baseline on the organization and then continuously be able to demonstrate impact as well as continuously identify the next area of impact for long-term relationships. So, you're building yourself into long-term engagement. Now, at this point in the presentation, some of you might be wondering, what do I do with the data? How do I present it? Or what should the deliverable look like? Obviously, Dan and I have our thoughts on this, but this is where we'd like to actually introduce you to some folks. So, Jorge, if you wouldn't mind joining us. Um, Dan, you want to,
I think you need to start my video.
gotcha. Dan, why don't you introduce Jorge while I figure out how to turn on his video?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jorge's been working with us for a little while now. He's been an incredible advocate of not only the system, but also someone that we lean on in terms of providing feedback. So it's been absolutely terrific to have him as a subscriber. And yeah, Jorge, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So my career was in tech. I was a public company CEO a number of times of global companies that were in two technology areas, supercomputing and semiconductor equipment. I moved into what I do now, which is mostly I serve on corporate boards, on public corporate boards, and I work with companies on helping them develop strategies and implement strategies to get better. And I've been using the New Orchard platform, I think is going on a little over 2 years now.
So on that, so you've obviously worked with many leadership and other cultural frameworks, right, over your
Yeah.
career. What stood out to you about New Orchard as compared to some of the traditional approaches?
Yeah, the biggest things that stand out are clearly the speed and clarity, right? In my old approaches, some of you might be doing this still or have done it in the past. I start, interview people, get on the phone, take notes, see if I could read my handwriting, etc. But with this, you really get a data-driven picture that alignment is clear, right, on what you're doing, and it turns something like when you work a lot in culture, and something that people have clarity, not guessing what it is, right? You get their input, and that gets translated into a very clear picture for clients, and super fast. I mean, that is the biggest for me as a consultant on my side, is what used to take weeks or months now takes hours or days.
So perfect kind of segue into my next question on kind of speed and practical impact. So what changes have you seen, like when organizations move from traditional diagnostics to New Orchard's approach? What are the before and afters you see? What are the dynamics that you see? What share a little bit about that experience from a client's perspective?
Sure. So, one of the things, and you probably all have experienced this, is even in the traditional methods, right? You collect data, you do interviews, you digest that data, present things, and you still end up dealing with biases and politics on the customer side,
Always,
right?
yeah.
With New Orchard, remember, it's their input. All you're doing is analyzing it. So, it removes a lot of the biases. It removes a lot of the ungrounded opinions, is the way I like to put it. And it shifts from we think this is an issue to clarity on what the issues really are. And then the other thing that, Rusty and Dan, you talked about is you can do this several times, right? So you set a baseline, you can check against the baseline with the same platform, right? So it removes again, it removes ambiguity, and it's checking against the progress they're making in a very, very clear way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of a final question here before we move on. You've been with New Orchard for a while. You've talked about so many different engagements, over the years. Can you share an example or two of, kind of what really changed after kind of leveraging the tool with some of your clients?
Sure. So I'll give you two examples. One is a very large nonprofit organization that all of you probably have one of these in your cities. They had a new CEO, and as you can imagine, coming into a new group, he brought a few of his executives, he inherited a number, and they were running into some issues, and he thought that it was really a big communications problem. And we ran the OII and OCC and really discovered that there was an alignment issue, right? Half of the executives looked at resources and how to bring them in and how to use them and very differently than the other half. And so once that was identified, they were able to very quickly shift the work they were doing into focusing on alignment instead of of course they needed improved communications, but it wasn't about what was being said. It was making sure everybody was aligned. Progress was made quickly after that was identified and fixed. And the second example I'll give you is a company that had just finished an acquisition. Two very good companies got together, and they started running into problems. And for this, we use the OMI to identify. By the way, the OMI takes you through 47 different aspects of facets of business in all the different areas of the business. And we started to see where what used to be potentially a fairly mature process in one company, when you put the two companies together, it degraded, right? Because the other side of the company maybe wasn't as mature, as an example, in forecasting business, right? So once that was done, we had a real clarity on what to work on, and then leveraging Scout. We were able to do it in, what order should you work on this? Because, change, too much change in an organization produces the same result as too much change in an organism. I can probably kill it. So by leveraging the whole suite of diagnostics and then Scouts and Strategy Builder, of course, you need your insight to put that whole thing together. But, time to clarity, time to insight, and then time to results gets really accelerated.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing both of those, and great to kind of hear from you and kind of the explicit kind of process and results that you've seen. So fantastic. Thanks for joining. Jorge will be sticking around. So if we have questions a little later, we can during the Q&A section, we can have him answer anything you might have.
And you can also reach out to him on chat while we're on this. So if you do have a direct question for him, feel free to do that. Jorge, thanks for joining us on that.
You're welcome.
So the next person I want to introduce you to, Trace, if you wouldn't mind joining us on camera. Trace, I had the pleasure of meeting him when he was a client of one of our subscribers. So, Trace, why don't you tell a little bit about kind of your role that you were in during the time that the consultant was working with your organization, and also the challenge that brought that consultant in.
Sure thing. Thanks, Rusty and Dan. Good to see you both. So my role at that point in time was as the director of learning and development, and I had been specifically brought into this large hospital system to bring an organizational development and leadership change perspective to the table, in addition to a number of other learning and development initiatives and responsibilities. So, I don't know, several years in, it got to the point where we realized that we needed to do some better self-assessment in some way. Our parent organization that had acquired us, a large national healthcare organization, had started us along the journey. I think we were a year, possibly 2 years into employee engagement, which gave us some really good, robust data. But as many of you probably are well aware of, employee engagement does not get into most of the time things like leadership capacity, unless you do some good customization of some of the questions there, and as well as change capacity. And so we started to look around, and we found New Orchard as a possible partner. Um, Part of the challenge, as some of you may be aware of in terms of healthcare, is the rapid rate of change, the intense time commitment that leadership and staff have to, to the mission of the organization, right? There's not a lot of fluff time, not a lot of time sitting around. So, that was part of the challenge, as well as, and quite honestly, I think this is a good textbook example of an organization, the parent company, acquiring a smaller company and not doing a full set of cultural and change capacity due diligence. I think there was some done, but not done at the local level where we could have some contributions. So very fast-paced situation. We needed to make sense out of a pretty complex data set. And I think my final comment and answer to that question, Rusty, is really that uh, I wanted to bring, instead of adding on top of the employee engagement data that we were collecting, I wanted to add on and really integrate the data to be able to make better sense out of the organizational maturity model that you guys bring to the table, as well as the change capacity side of things. I wanted to bring that together and see what we could do in terms of synthesizing that with employee engagement. And the Scout AI system really was immeasurable in helping us do that.
Hmm. What was the when you brought this up to the leadership and or your consultant brought it up to the leadership of like, hey, I want you to go through this. What was the initial response, and then what was the response once they saw the data?
Uh, so I think on the front end of getting into the engagement, our consultant, I think, did a really good job of helping us frame the questions and the challenges that we were facing, as well as New Orchard's capacity for helping us with your platforms. Uh, I think one of the challenges really was uh, getting the senior leadership on board, because these are really smart people, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I'm sure many of the people on this call are working with clients that are very sharp. They know what they're doing in their particular technical areas of expertise. Um, they were, I would say, on the front end, fairly resistant to the time and the cost of bringing in a consultant to add in, and as well as there was concern, I think, expressed by HR that we were going to be duplicating our employee engagement work that the parent company had already rolled out. And
Mhm.
truthfully, our consultant did a great job of helping make really clear that what New Orchard brought to the table was actually an add-on or an additional value to the employee engagement data, not duplicative.
Yeah.
After we got into the process, I think that the organizational maturity model really helped the senior leadership team start to understand that while they have had, it's past tense, had a positive working relationship, and they were doing well as a leadership team. They had some pretty significant differences in perspective in
Yeah.
terms of how their organization was being run.
Mhm.
And the identity index as well really helped, I think, flesh that out as well. So once they started to get experience a little bit with the tools and see the data, and then we did some of the synthesis through the AI system. I think they really started to understand better what this was all about. it started confirming some of their suspicions about what was going on, and I think it also helped them prioritize a number of things that they wanted to accomplish. They couldn't all do it all at once, but I think had a better idea of what to prioritize.
Yeah.
Does that help?
So those of you that are listening to this and are intrigued by it, there's actually a case study that we wrote on this and that's been de-identified. Kimberly on our team can send out the link on that. If you want it, just shoot in the chat that you'd love to see the case study that Trace was talking about. Um, Trace will also be around, so you can shoot him some questions and we'll also bring him back for Q&A. Trace, thanks for joining us on that. Appreciate it. And also, while I'm thinking of this, you've heard Jorge and Trace both bring up some things about large organizations, small organizations. The great thing about this is if the principles of business apply, it'll work. So it doesn't matter if it's a startup, $1 million organization, a 30 million, a billion. We've seen it used across all organizations because this is basically we've systematized principles of business. That's all this is. So, and we're seeing this. I mean, you heard it a little bit about the senior leadership. We hear this all the time that we finally saw what we couldn't put into words for years. So that is a common thing, and that is a sigh of relief for a lot of your clients. So, Dan, I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So this slide is the heart of our approach, right? We call it the no, show, move. And it exists for one reason, to close that confidence gap. So because early on the issues usually, it isn't that you don't understand or what's going on, it's that the client can't see it clearly enough to act, and their stakeholders can't consistently see it enough to align together as a team. So first, no, right? Experienced advisors recognize patterns fast. Within minutes, you can hear the language, spot the contradictions, and even sense where execution is breaking down. That instinct is real and obviously valuable. But here's the limitation. Instinct lives inside the advisor. So if the insights only live in your head, the client experience it as an opinion, no matter how right you are. So as we move to the no, this is the discipline or the ability to say, here's what I'm noticing, and here's what we need to validate. This step is where many consultants stop. They know, and yet they, and they can pitch, but yet they're just not feeling it. So what separates the best advisors is what happened next, and that's show. So this is where you stop trying to convince and start helping the client recognize, because belief doesn't come from trust me. It comes from, oh, that's us. I see what you mean. So we translate what's happening into clear visuals that quickly surface three things: how leadership is perceiving and prioritizing, and where viewpoints diverge, how ready the culture is to absorb that change, what will support it and what will resist it, and how mature execution really is, where the operation is stable and where it's fragile. When you can show that simply, the conversations changes from a debate to alignment. And so third is move. Clarity is power, right? But clarity alone doesn't produce outcomes. So move is where you turn shared understanding into this type of coordinated execution. So what matters most? What happens first? Who owns what? How does progress get measured? And this is how you protect the engagement, because most failures aren't from bad strategy. They're from misalignment, a low change to readiness, or an operating system that just can't support the plan. So remember, no earns credibility and speed, show earns belief and alignment, and move earns momentum and result.
All right, so we've been talking for a little bit. Let's throw up our next poll. Which part of the model is your biggest challenge today? Knowing what's wrong, showing it clearly, or moving the team forward? While you're filling this one out, I'm going to answer a couple things. I think it was Mark who made a suggestion earlier. This presentation, this webinar is really about a process right now. We are going to, we are obviously alluding to Journey and everything. The reality is, whether you use Journey or whatever it may be to solve this problem, this process still works. We wanted to focus on this, and then if you do want to see a demo, we'd love to show you that. So please reach out to Kimberly or let us know in the chat. It takes us about 15 minutes to show you all this kind of good stuff. But knowing, showing, and moving. So let's take a look. We've got all right. So showing and moving.
There we go. Yep.
Uh,
That's pretty typical.
One does not have any weak links. I want to be on that team.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so this is again the showing and moving. That is typically where all of us are challenged when we're trying to get people to do something. So let me share with you how subscribers actually position this with their prospects and clients at the beginning of an engagement. You already heard from Jorge, and maybe he can share more about this during the Q&A, but here are a couple that may resonate with you depending on your revenue model. So we call this the loss leader entry point. So some subscribers use Journey as a front end belief builder, a fast, low friction, confidence gap snapshot. The goal isn't to solve everything, it's to replace opinions with visual proof and create conviction so the client is ready to move. So it's the easiest yes that opens the door to the bigger engagement. The next one is the low cost kind of paid discovery. It's really designed to be able to recoup later. So other subscribers of ours position this as a fixed fee clarity sprint. It's a paid discovery alternative. They use the process to accelerate data gathering, reduce that subjectivity, and amplify their expertise, really put themselves on display. And then they roll that fee forward into the next phase when the client wants the roadmap and the execution help. So this is a great fit for firms that sell project work and need a clean bridge from interest to scope. And finally, this is one of my favorites, is the value sale. Okay. This is when some subscribers embed Journey as the backbone. So this is what Jorge's done, as well as a number of our other ones, as the backbone of an ongoing advisory relationship. So they're going to baseline the organization, they're going to execute, and then they're going to reassess, continuously showing the impact. And that's where the advisor becomes indispensable, because you're not just delivering recommendations, you're running a continuous improvement journey with visible progress and the next area of impact always in view. Okay. So whichever model matches your firm, loss leader, sprint, full journey, the point is the same. Don't just know, show them, and then have them move. Let me talk real quick about outcomes. Okay, so we've been doing this the system's been around for about 8 years. We've been in existence for 6. So this isn't just a theory. These are the kind of results we're consistently seeing when advisors apply this no show move in real client conversations. So first is 83% faster discovery. Jorge alluded to this. What was taking him, hours and days is taking him minutes and accelerating. Second, we're seeing a 78% plus close ratio on high revenue engagement. So when you get in and you're able to run this and pitch, you're seeing a 78% close ratio. The third, and this is, one of my favorites to brag on, is our clients are seeing a 5 to 10x on the low end increased profitability. So this is where it compounds. Profitability jumps because you're improving multiple levers at once. You close faster because conviction happens earlier. You can charge premium fees because you're de-risking the engagement with proof. And you deliver with far less rework because alignment and readiness are addressed up front before the plan hits resistance. So if you're thinking, what's the real advantage here? It's this: you're no longer selling your confidence. You're giving the client evidence they can rally around quickly enough to win the deal and clearly enough to execute. And in a market where speed and trust are the differentiators, that's what moves you from competing on price to leading with authority. All right, so here's the final poll. We're going to pull this one up. How interested would you be in kind of seeing that journey system platform? If this is something that you would like to explore or ask questions, I saw one earlier of like, hey, we're in sales and how does this apply? Let's get on a phone and at least disqualify it together if it doesn't make sense. The team is great here. We're not super silly. Yes, my last name is Goodsell, but that's just because it was given to me.
Yeah, I
But
had to
we
make
are
that
a
had to
team.
make that joke
Yeah, yeah.
every time. I still like it though.
Okay, good. But yeah, so this is something that we wanna make it available to you. We want to be able to have the conversation. If it's not a fit, we're gonna be the first to tell you it's not a fit. So yeah, so it looks like we've got a little bit more to take. We've got about 50% of our participants that have answered on this. If you would like to know, please reach out. You can book from the link. Let's go ahead and let's engage in some open dialogues here. So I have not been able to watch a lot of the Q&A. So
Yeah,
Dan,
I've covered gosh, almost a dozen questions. Happy to go more. Any other questions people want to ask in the chat or at the Q&A? Or we can
Jorge and
yeah.
Trace, you want to come back on real quick?
Yep.
Guys, any
Sure.
any thoughts from you guys today? Any maybe you had a sidebar with one of the participants. Anything that you want to share from your experience that we didn't cover today?
I think you guys did a great job covering the benefits. For example, I like the word journey, so I use journey. I don't assign it to Northchart when we talk about it, but it really sets it up in the conversations with potential clients to where this is, you know, you have to start obviously, but then there's methodologies that we can use to track the progress that they're making, right? And I think that adds to the value. Is not a once and done, but we can continue to track and then I mean, at some level also you want to be in and not be some a crutch that they need to use all the time. But I think after a few of these sessions with I use a 6-month redo on OII and OCC. And OMI, you probably need a little longer, right, to make sure that there's been progress, because some of those changes will take a little more time. But
Jorge, real quick, here's a question for you. How intuitive was the system for you?
Super easy.
And would you consider yourself a data analyst?
No. My career was all in tech, so I'm pretty technical, but the what also, by the way, I don't know if this has come up or not, but almost everything in the platform is customizable, right? So you can
Mhm.
make it feel, look like it's your company. The logos, I think you can add questions to the surveys, etc. So it's a great platform, and I love the word using the word platform instead of tools because it really allows you to build from there forward. So.
That's good. Trace, talk a little bit about the data that your consultant shared with you. Was that easy to digest? Um, we alluded to the fact that we did a case study. So you took employee engagement data and, wove it together. Talk a little bit about, are you a data analyst and how was that for you?
Well, so as Jorge chuckled, I almost laughed out loud when you asked the question because my background is in psychology and sociology and that kind of stuff. So no, I'm not in data analysis. Uh, these tools and the data that comes out of them, and including through Scout, I would say, were actually fairly easy to manage. I think one little caveat, which is probably obvious to people, but I think it's just really important, and that is garbage in, garbage out. So
Mm,
we were using uh, some of our census data from HR to identify managers and departments within divisions and divisions within reporting structure to the C-suite. And that was a little clunky at times, but that was not New Orchard's problem. That was my problem because we had some questionable stuff going on. I think on the back end in terms of analysis and generating reports and all that, the Scout platform is just awesome. It's pretty seamless. The case study that you have there, I think is largely a byproduct of our work through using Scout. And so I think the data that we were able to put together made a lot of sense to the client on the backside.
that's awesome. Thank you, Trace. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
thank you.
Um, hey, we're at 10:57 and we are grateful for you. We value your time that you spent with us this morning, this afternoon, depending on where you are. But feel free, we're going to stick around for a couple more minutes. If there's any questions, feel free to throw it into the chat real quick. And if not, we are grateful that you came. Dan, any parting wisdom that you want to give everybody? Get a generator.
Yeah, get a generator, stay warm out there. At least for Nashville, winter's almost over.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Yes, thank you, Mark. We look
Yeah,
forward to meeting you.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and sign us off. And thank you, Bob. Thank you, Tim. And we'll see you, Jorge, Trace. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.